Good afternoon, everybody, and a warm welcome to this live broadcast event where we are going to talk you through the 5G opportunities, fiber connectivity, and how to manage your hybrid cloud strategy. Just before we start, I have a couple of practical things. First of all, if you have any questions during the presentation, you have an orange button that you can click on, and there you can post the questions. We can see the questions, and we will try to answer as many as possible of these questions. But if we, in sake of time, cannot answer you, we will come back personally and make sure that you get the correct information that you require. Secondly, for those who have left their personal address, you have received a package. Enjoy the drinks that are in it and the refreshments. You can do it either now or during the second part, because that is also something that I want to already mention right now. We have, during the first hour, our presentations, and I will present to you immediately the people that are going to talk about the different subjects. And after that, we will have the possibilities that you interact in smaller groups with each of the presenters. So, first of all, we have Mitch de Geest. Mitch is the CEO of Citymesh. Welcome, Mitch, also, who will talk about 5G and the possibilities that it will offer to you. After that, and he's the one that is virtually present here, is Jaap Gorjoep. Jaap Gorjoep is the CIO of MatrixMind, MatrixMind being a company that is in the Eurofiber family. And thirdly, Hans Withoek, the MD of Eurofiber Belgium, who will talk us through the possibilities of the underlying infrastructure of fiber to make sure that, well, everything fits together. So, first of all, I will hand over the word to Mitch, as being mentioned, Mitch being the CEO of Citymesh. Citymesh, the only provider in Belgium right now that has both a 4G and a 5G license, and he will talk us through the evolution towards the different possibilities of 5G. So, Mitch, I will hand it over to you right now for the first presentation.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Good afternoon, everybody. I will talk today a little bit about mobile private networks in a 4G and 5G world. So who is Citymesh? As Jan mentioned, Citymesh is a telco, an operator. We position ourselves as the fourth Belgian operator, but we have a clear B2B focus where we build large industrial 4G and 5G networks using our nationwide license in 4G and 5G. We've been in telecom for the last 15 years with a team of almost 100 people, a little bit less than 100 people. It used to be strict Wi-Fi focus that the company had. We deployed a lot of Wi-Fi networks in exhibition halls, city centers, and so on. But since 2015, we also became active in the 4G and 5G world, and we focus on the business critical and mission critical connectivity of those networks. So what exactly is a mobile private network? What we create is a bubble, a telecommunication bubble specifically built for a specific site. That can be a factory, a hospital, a port, an airport, a campus, logistics centers, cities, warehouses, and so on. And we see the same trend as a few decades ago. At the end of the 60s, we had a public branch exchange where if you needed to do a telephone call, you were first in contact with the public branch exchange. But then early 70s, the PBX, so the private branch exchange, became available on the market, and a lot of companies bought their own PBX and were at that point in time able to do their internal communications free of the public network. And we see the same trend happening now with mobile connectivity, especially on the business and critical side, where a lot of companies are thinking about, and even cities are thinking about, deploying their own private network. The reason that those companies want to have their own network is because they want to have full control of that network. So security is definitely one thing. Resilience is also another thing. They want to be independent of a public network infrastructure. So they are sure that whatever happens, they have control over their own private network. And it's also consumption-based model that is normally used in a public network, does not longer exist in a private network. So even if you use 1 gig or 10 terabyte on that network, it's your own infrastructure, so you pay a fixed price per month independent of the consumption. To give you some examples of networks that we already deployed, we have a very large network in the Belgian North Sea that is being used by construction vessels and maintenance vessels for the offshore wind industry. All those vessels are connected to a mobile private network that we run at sea. We also have a large network in the port of Zeebrugge deployed, where there are different use cases. We have drones flying on that network. We have autonomous vessels sailing connected to that network. There is a lot of mobile CCTV applications, sensor applications, and so on. Another interesting use case is a container terminal where we connect all the straddle carriers, so all the machines that pick up the containers and move them back and forward, are connected to a mobile private network. To give you some idea, the initial idea of that company was to deploy a new Wi-Fi based infrastructure, but they soon realized that Wi-Fi had its limitations, especially because it's a very large area, but there is also a lot of interference possible, especially in a harbor, on that Wi-Fi network. So the uptime of that Wi-Fi network would be limited, and also the amount of access points they needed to install was close to 70 access points. We actually deployed a mobile private network there with 2 base stations and an uptime of 4 nines. One of the most known projects that we've done is Brussels Airport, where we deployed a large mobile private network at the airport here in Zaventem. And that network is being used for a whole different side of use cases. Roughly 100 use cases already defined on that network, and we're implementing those use cases as we go for the next few years. But why is that mobile private network very valuable for that companies? We see some trends happening in the market. A first trend is the leverage of the power of the cloud. If you connect your fiber cable that comes into your enterprise, to your airport, to your campus, and you connect that to a mobile private network, then you can really start connecting all your machines, all your sensors, your people, tablets, phones, everything can be connected on that mobile private network. And the data that is being assembled on that mobile private network through those sensors can be pushed over the fiber to the cloud. And then you can use the compute and storage power of the cloud to really create some interesting insights, run artificial intelligence in the cloud, and so on. Another trend is remote assistance, an interesting use case in the offshore wind, where people on site have support of a specialist, of an engineer that is somewhere else, and by connecting again the fiber that runs to the offshore wind farm with the mobile private network, those people are in contact with specialists remotely. They can even exchange information over that mobile private network. We're also working with virtual reality and augmented reality in those use cases, where people can really see what is going on from a remote location and help, for example, if there's a problem on the machinery, can help those people on site. A third trend is remote operations. So you have remote support, but also remote operations, where there is a big trend, especially in those areas where the areas that are remote, that are very far away, like an offshore wind farm, but also where the safety of the people that are working in those regions is crucial. We see that there is a trend of automating the machines and getting the people out of that remote location in a more safer environment. There's also a cost perspective to that. They don't have to do the travel, so there is a cost limitation available there, where the travel is no longer needed. Safety costs are one of the main drivers there. We see that happening on cranes, but also on large trucks. And another project that we are supporting is on an autonomous vessel that is connected through our network in the port of Zeebrugge, but also our network at the North Sea. And that vessel is sailing from the port of Antwerpen to the port of Zeebrugge, remotely controlled by a captain that is in an office somewhere in Antwerp. Also, everything that has a recurring task is a recurring task. We see that more and more being automated by, for example, those robots from Boston Dynamics. This is the Spot robot that is able to do an automation of a recurring task. Also assembles a lot of information through its sensors that it carries on the robot. And those, let's say, that information is again being transferred over the mobile private network, over the fiber to the cloud. We can also remotely, because we have already done an integration with the Spot on the mobile private network, we can also remotely operate that robot. Another example, we talked about sailing and walking robots. Another interesting example is flying drones, where we create aerial insight solutions together with our partner Nokia. And we already have drones flying around in the port of Zeebrugge, but also on Brussels Airport, where the drone is connected again to that mobile private network, where we can ensure a very low latency, where we can ensure the control remotely of those drones in again mission critical and business critical way. So to wrap it up, what we can do with the mobile private network is really extend the fiber connectivity to everywhere in the factory, in the city, in the hospital, in the enterprise. And the main drivers are safety, personal safety, efficiency of those operations, and of course also resilience, because you have full control of your mobile private network. Thank you.
Okay, very interesting, Mitch. Thank you very much. So 5G is here. You already have deployments that are working and that show the added value to the customers, which is very interesting. I've got some questions here. The first one is, how do you arrange the frequency licenses for private mobile networks? Are these customers owned frequencies, or do you use the public frequencies? And what is the maximum throughput on these private networks? And how do you guarantee bandwidth, since this is a shared medium? It's a couple of questions in one.
Yeah, so I really want to point it out that it's not a shared medium. We have our own spectrum. So Citymesh has, just like Proximus, Orange and Telenet has their own spectrum, we also have our own 4G spectrum, and we also have our own 5G spectrum. So we have full control over that spectrum, and we decide which macro or base stations we activate. So we can guarantee bandwidth, we can guarantee throughput on that network because we own that frequency. We own that frequency nationwide, that 4G license, and we control whatever happens in that frequency area. So it's not like we're sharing that with Proximus, Telenet, or Orange, or anybody else. We own the spectrum because it's a BIPT license, so Citymesh owns that spectrum, and we, together with our customers, roll out a network using that spectrum that we have.
Okay, clear. I have a second question. How does Citymesh position itself to compare to the typical incumbent providers like Proximus and Telenet Orange? And what is the differentiator that you see towards these people that concentrate on more, let's say, the general public?
Yeah, so it's really important to understand that we roll out those networks specific for a site, for example, an airport. And the two main drivers, or the two big differences between the public operators, is that we build and operate that network for that customer. So the customer can decide who can enter the network, who can connect to the network, can also, on a quality of service level, decide who can do what on that network. We can define multiple slices in that network for that customer. So that's the first big difference, is that the customer can really take full control of their telecom infrastructure and is independent of any public infrastructure. So whatever happens on the public network, the private network remains in full control and fully operational. A second big difference is that we do not use a consumption model. So the customer owns its network infrastructure, and if he consumes 1 gig in a month or 10 terabyte in a month, that doesn't matter, because we charge a fixed price for the network infrastructure, and we do not work with the consumption model.
Okay. Very clear, thank you. We still have a couple of questions, but we will answer those personally because we really want to keep to the schedule that we have put ourselves onto. So we will jump over now to the next topic, but Mitch will certainly come back to you with the questions that we still have. Mitch mentioned that 5G will create a lot of data, and that it is the power of the cloud, in whichever form that you can see it, will make sure that the data will become information. And that is something where Matrix Mind can jump into to explain the vision on how to make sure that you do it in a secure, manageable, and future-proof way. So I will hand it over now to Jaap. Jaap is not physically present here, but he is virtually present, and he will help you to understand better how you can make sure that the cloud can help you in an efficient way. Up to you, Jaap.
The opportunity to talk to you. Matrix Mind is a hybrid cloud networking organization, and we support companies connecting to the cloud in a safe and in a controllable manner. So if we can have the first slides, please. So if we had to start talking about the cloud, it's interesting to know where it's coming from. So initially, it was the president of IBM about 80 years ago talking about a world with 5 computers. So until the beginning of this century, we thought that was ridiculous because there were so many computers. And nowadays, if you count all the mobile phones, there are billions of them. But in the future, now that connectivity has taken over, you can see that there are 5 really big computers, the clouds, the main clouds, arranging most of the compute work. And slowly they are migrating from a place where you have purely compute to a place where you have a platform where you can do smart stuff. And this all started in 2006 with Amazon wanted to offload their costs of running their website because of all kind of downtimes. And they gave the possibility to put some virtual machines on it to the nowadays 5 really big worldwide clouds that do all kind of smart stuff for you and can basically run the business of your future. Next slide, please. Well, when talking to customers, we think about the opportunities there are, and we try to tell them, okay, listen up, do you want to put your business into the driver's seat? Because you want to innovate faster. You don't want to talk to all kind of technology people about how your business works and the other way around. So how to improve that? Another thing, I just lost my slide, sorry. Thank you. Another thing is that big data and machine learning are something that is going to be core of all the business that we do. And these services are hard to build up and hard to control. And you as an organization have to do something about that. So the clouds have that built in and you can use that. Clouds have modern security features for you that you can use. And most importantly, it is a software game. So everything that is software, you can scale, you can change, you can upgrade, and you can accelerate. So that's a big opportunity. Next slide, please. But there is a dark side of going to the cloud. And as any starting company in the cloud knows, your organization starts to behave like a kid in a candy store. They eat all the candies they have and they're probably sick for a week. And the same thing happens to your cloud bill. Your initial cloud bill is much higher than you expected. And suddenly you're caught into a web of having to check the costs daily and having to control it because anyone can start anything. And this was a problem you didn't have before. Another thing is you did not have a worldwide network of services where a typing mistake could just lead to your data being in Brazil or even worse, into Russia. You have to redefine how to protect yourself because multiple places. it's naturally integrated part of the internet because and so you have to do something about that and maybe keep the internet out in places where you don't want it. And another threat is, again, it's a software game. Your company might not be ready to play the software game. So how to work with that? Next slide, please. But firstly, think about, does everything go to the cloud? Do you really put all your workloads into that cloud? And mostly we start off a conversation with companies that say, yes, we do. We want to go to Azure. No, we made this deal, everything in AWS. But you have to think about, from a cost and manageability perspective, are your workloads elastic or is it fixed? Because then it's much cheaper just to keep it into a private hosting or to buy your own machines. Another question is, will you be using a single cloud? And my answer is that will never happen. Maybe now, but even from a perspective of competition in the world, there will be many more smaller vendors, and that will be coming up really soon. So you have to be ready to jump between those various clouds or use the clouds where they're best suited for you at that moment. Can I have the slides back, please? Thank you. Your company might not be ready for variable costs, which is a problem because you might be used to having fixed cost CapEx running into your organization. And suddenly now it's, they call it business driven, but it's variable. So how to control it? You might be thinking that it's hard to keep it GDPR compliant or to be compliant with the way that your business wants to work with customer data. And you have to do extra stuff for that. You can make it secure, but is it worry-free? Because it's public, you have to do stuff every day. You have to check, you have to patch more, you have to do more. And importantly, is it fast enough in a world where the speed of connectivity is massively increasing? Next slide, please. So when you want to move the data to the cloud, that's a different discussion than moving the applications to the cloud. Because data is created everywhere, anywhere, except the cloud itself. Yes, it contains also metadata, which is basically interesting for me, for my job, but for most business, doesn't make any sense. So data has to come from anywhere into that cloud and has to be communicated. And most data is machine data. It's already for over 10 years that the majority of internet communication is machine-based. So you get these new ways of working, and these were these beautiful examples that Mitch told us about with the drones and cameras, analyzing things, sending over data, which are much cheaper sensors, which you can use to innovate really quickly on your productions or into the way that your logistics work. And algorithms in the cloud can analyze this data in real time and make all kinds of stuff for it. And then when you connect it to 5G, you get a lot more bandwidth, but that's also a problem because you have to work with a lot more data. And then remember one thing, sending data into the cloud is really cheap, but it's really expensive to get it out. Next slide, please. So when you want to set this up, it needs to be faster, better, bigger. Because it will be faster, better, bigger. You need more bandwidth, more storage, more elastic workloads, because your data flow will not be, well, stable anymore. And see, that's in how a 5G mobile network might work, is that your mobile phone that you will have in the next year will get a 10 gigabit modem in it. 10 gigabit. So I'm not even sure if a mobile phone can generate this amount of traffic right now, but they will find something about that. So that much data is sent over from sensors, from networks, over this really quickly 5G networks, that you have to do something. these are pipelines. These are pipelines like oil, where most of the traffic, when you put the gas into your car, that's mostly transported on the road to your gas station. But before that, these are big oil pipelines. And this is the place where this is organized. And mostly the refinement and all kind of things, they come in the middle. They don't put everything into one place because that's not economical, that's too hard to do. And it's also logistically a nightmare. Next slide, please. So the solution, and basically it's not really a solution, but what is happening at this moment is something that's called edge computing, is that we're processing the initial data incoming at the edge before sending it into the cloud, before sending it into the big data networks that we're building right now. And that's what initially is processed, is checked, is real-time evaluated. And if you look at it, most clouds have the opportunity to put edge computing into the manageability scope of that cloud. In AWS, you can do it. You just connect the devices to it, and it processes it at the edge and then send it in again. In 99% of the situations, raw data from the cloud is not already always needed, and that's because the data is already been filtered. And that's also where the changes are. Next slide, please. In order to support that, we get a future platform that has 5G, that has fast fiber connectivity, private connectivity, big pipelines when needed, variable fast integrations using 5G in order to be agile and flexible. And then you use the cloud as an intelligent platform, one or more clouds as intelligent platforms to help you grow and flexibly work. You have services that seamlessly integrate between humans and machines when needed. Scalable and secure by design. And secure by design might be really hard to keep when you keep the internet in the middle of everything. And when you look at an architecture like that, there's a name for it, and it's called fog computing. Just as a name to remember, fog is basically a cloud hanging real low near where you are. So that is the technology of the cloud bringing near to you, so you can use part of it in-house to do the initial processing and integration, and then send it off to the big cloud to do the really intelligent stuff. Next slide. So what you need in order to get that working is a solid foundation. A solid foundation means for multiple clouds or for your in-house cloud or your private IaaS or whatever that you have. If you have more than one place of compute, you need to have a solid foundation for your communication, the way that you work with your compute and storage. You need to be able to land the connections into your cloud instead of having them, well, just thrown over a big wall, and whatever happens over in the cloud, it stays in the cloud. That's not how it works. You need to be able to keep them in one overview and to also to understand that the things need to be safe and need to be worked. And this foundation is what we deliver in together with Eurofiber as Cloud Hub. Next slide, please. The Cloud Hub is a central linking pin for private cloud communication, not only for public clouds, for private clouds, but also for SaaS vendors. So if you work with Salesforce.com or Dynamics, any of these two vendors, we have connected directly, privately into our hub, integrate that with any public cloud that you want to, and give them the opportunity to privately interface between them. So there's never the mistake that things run over the internet, via the internet, with a wrong checkpoint that it's somewhere placed into a bucket that's been available for the internet. It's private. So that's secure by design. It's scalable. So we can scale up to right now to 10 gigabit. We're just waiting. because right now, but you cannot be for 2 years in this speed. If you want to get rid of us, that's possible, and you can just keep your operation running. We have really fast, mostly private cloud interconnect available, and we will monitoring everything for you. So if things happening, mostly we have fixed it before you will notice it. Next slide. So, recap on basically what we've discussed. There is a data explosion coming. The explosion has been accelerated by really fast networks, broadband, 5G, and devices that's going to speed up a lot of data. We're going to process a lot of that in the cloud, but we're going to control a lot on the edge. Think about self-steering cars or the warehouses that manage themselves. The multi-cloud is inevitable, in my opinion. And you need a solid foundation for that. And we think we can help you along with that using CloudHub. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Jaap. So CloudHub is really like the gateway that is going to make sure that all the different cloud strategies that you want will be manageable in a correct way. So thank you very much for that. I have the impression that Jaap is not hearing us, so I hope this will be fixed in a short while. Okay. Okay. I have a question. The 5G. Oh, sorry. There's another question on 5G. I will, as mentioned, we will come back to that later. I have another question, Jaap, for you. Is edge of compute at the edge really what is the future? Because the hyperscalers might think differently.
They thought differently, but looking at their product portfolios, they're really stepping up their hybrid cloud game from Azure that's working on their Arc platform and their custom hardware for industrial edge computing. You see that they really jumped onto that wagon. But there are basically 3 more reasons for doing that. One of that is the world of privacy and security. It is growing, and there is a need to keep more control. Another thing is just to keep the price low. The cloud is made for elasticity and not for, stable costs. And if you're in a production environment, you need to keep it like that. So I think we've seen only the beginning of the edge computing, and the cloud vendors, the big ones, are already jumping onto that bandwagon.
Okay, for the time being, there are no further questions. So, of course, everybody, as mentioned, has the opportunity to talk in detail about it during the breakout session. So now we will come to our last part of the presentations of our first part of the live broadcast event. And Hans Wittek will talk us through the fiber opportunity as the key enabler for the digital transformation projects, the glue between everything that we have been talking about, 5G, the cloud hub that connects all these data to the cloud and having a strategy around it. So Hans, I hand it over to you now.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Mitch. Thank you, Jaap. We've been hearing very interesting applications. We hear and see a lot of things happening in the edge. We hear data processing very far out of the edge, really at the end, the hyperscalers, and in between we hear things about fog, computing and the likes. And so bringing all these things together into a working solution really is the job what Eurofiber is doing. We are bringing these edges, clouds together through a future-proof network, being a fiber network over mainly Belgium, Netherlands, and I come later on to our expansion plans where we are deploying our networks. So fiber as a key enabler for your digital transformation projects. We have been seeing and witnessing COVID for nearly a year and a half now, and we have been seeing a number of organizations going through a rapid digital transformation. And what we now witness is that there is a second wave of digital transformation, because the first one was done through very urgent need of transformation, but it wasn't well thought through. So everybody had to do it very urgently. And now people are rethinking their strategies and going into that second digital transformation. And it's a transformation that will touch upon everything. It will touch upon the application. It will touch upon whether to put processing in the edge, in the cloud, but also into the networks. People have been moved to their houses, and everybody has been witnessing some very daily applications that are run in the cloud, Office 365. And what you see is that in the past this was run in a cupboard on a server, and then the response times were pretty good. So people had the impression that, in fact, this application was even run on their PC. But when you start working from home in a public internet, and the Office 365 is run somewhere in the cloud, you see that response times are not nearly as good as it was before. And this is also part of rethinking the digital strategy, giving the user experiences back to what they were, to the people that really need to work with it on a daily basis. So digital transformation touches upon everything. What we also see is new forms of picking up data. In that context, Mitch has been saying a lot of things about 5G, but 5G will not only connect the things that we know today, but it will connect many more devices, sensors in the future. And what you see is there might be even edge processing to capture already more relevant information out of the data at the edge. Still, the tons of data that need to be transported towards a cloud will be huge. And so you cannot think of a 5G environment without the fiber networks that we are building. So bigger data streams require that bandwidth, and for that you need to make sure that you have a future-proof network that can support your digital transformation projects for the future. So, and I've been talking to the user experience already. So what is it then that makes out the fundamentals of a good connectivity? Future-proofness is key. You need to make sure that the networks that are supporting your business processes can grow with you. And we all witness the limitations right now of the coax networks, the twisted pair networks of the past. There is an end to what they can deliver in the future. And so investing in a digital transformation project cannot be done without thinking through the fundamentals of the network interconnecting these things. Important is also the symmetrical bandwidths. For instance, schools. What we've been seeing right now is schools had asymmetrical networks. But there are projects from Minister of Education, for instance, Ben Waits, offering now PCs to all these students. Now, all of a sudden, where you had in the past only 5 devices talking to the internet in a school, you may have thousands of users talking to applications at the cloud. And you cannot do that with asymmetrical networks anymore. So symmetrical bandwidth with a low latency, so you have a good user experience, are very important. Security, it has been mentioned by both Mitch and Jaap. But it's not only secure at the edge, it's not only to be secure at the cloud itself, but also in between these two sites, you need to offer a secure network. With that, also redundancy is an important part, and scalability. And you also want an SLA, the best SLA that is out there, because if your critical business process is running on a network and there is a failure, you want that to be repaired pretty fast. So these are things that you really need to keep in mind when you're deciding upon connectivity. And then a very important aspect, which is not pretty well known in Belgium yet, but is well known in the other countries surrounding us, is the vertical integration. Watch out with vertical integration, because you cannot leverage all the innovations that are out there from the other players other than the incumbent players that offer full stack services. You don't want to be dependent too much on the Proximuses, on the Telenets of this world, offering you a full integrated solutions, because I'm sure that there is out there always a competitor or an innovator that can bring you better services to improve your business. And important is also that you work with partners that keep on investing into the network itself. The network as it is today is not the network of the future, and therefore we have been working always with an investment policy. We keep on investing to grow our network and to make sure that the network is growing with your business applications that you are building. A deeper word on redundancy. It's sad to see that most of the time redundancy is only an afterthought. An afterthought when something severe happened. And these things happen. Unfortunately, the OVH data center, we have seen a massive burn of that project. But it's only because of the fact that there was also redundancy that they could restore that pretty quickly. We had ourselves an incident, a fire in a tunnel, and there were many operators involved with that. But if you don't have a redundant network, then there would have been a massive problem in Belgium, because tons of antenna poles were running out on that. If you don't have a good redundancy policy, then you're out of business for quite some time. So, and this is costing you money as well. There are different figures there. I'm not going to go too deep into that, but I would like to make sure that redundancy is no longer an afterthought, but that you make sure that you work with that provider that guarantees you the right redundancy for your project, so you don't run into issues afterwards. Future-proof technology. As I told you, there is a limit towards twisted pair. There's a limit towards coax. But today, we don't know the limits of fiber yet. There's still continuation of the technology layer on top of the fiber infrastructure that keeps on improving the bandwidths, that keeps on improving the latencies onto that networks. So make sure that you work with those future-proof technologies like there is dark fiber or connectivity, so that you are not stuck with a network that cannot support your growth any further. And then there's the partner system, open networks. Open has been always a philosophy of Eurofiber from the very beginning. And what does that mean? That means, in fact, that partners are imperative to our business. What we often say is that Eurofiber is only delivering a half fabric. We deliver dark fiber, we deliver connectivity, but then we really need those partners offering services on top of that network to make sure that the users can benefit from the best services that there are. And I think this is a philosophy that is probably not yet known or that well known in Belgium, but you see it in the ecosystem in the Netherlands and France, that because of these open networks, you see much more contenders, much more competitors standing up, competing against each other, or working on a very specific niche, offering that service that is out there really meant for you. And you're not stuck to work with the service providers that you always have been working with. So the open vision is really a vision that we see through all our way of working, but it makes us important to our partners, and our partners very important to us. We cannot work with them, and so the partner imperative is baked into our way of working. As I said, Eurofiber has a strong investment policy. This has been seen in the last year in a number of forms, so we continue to grow our network in a really Eurofiber network. So we've been buying networks in France recently, in Germany, Also, we work on new capabilities to bring onto our network. We have a strong cooperation with Matrix Minds. We have been investing in extra data centers. And also DC Spine is a new evolution on how we interconnect those clouds, those data centers, on a more variable way with the right connectivity at the right time that our customers need. So we keep on investing, and then there's a complete new area of investments which are more in the area of B2B2C. The thing is, we invest in a network which is again open, and we allow service providers to offer their service onto that network. One of the things that we have been doing is building a joint venture in Wallonia for fiber to the home. You will hear of that pretty soon. But this is not the only fiber to the home venture. We also have one in Berlin right now, where we work together with Vattenfall, again, to increase the capacity of fiber towards the end user to make sure that all of the edges we've been talking about are covered and can be connected to all these clouds and fog computing systems. Projects that are probably not that far off, or that we have been realizing at this very moment, is we've been building several new MPLS POPs into Belgium itself, increasing the connectivity in Belgium, so we can virtually connect everywhere from Belgium onto our network. But we have been extending these POP locations also into Europe, now going into France, going into Frankfurt, going into Hamburg, as well as London, so pretty important. And it's not only these POPs, you always need to increase the capacity in between as well, as we are talking about terabytes moving from one side to another. So these are the investments that we are working on as we speak. So conclusion for me is digital transformation projects, business transformation projects, we are going through it. We are revision what we have been doing in a quick and dirty way during COVID. We see interesting things happening at the very edge with 5G private LTE as CityMesh is deploying them. We see all the data being moved through a number of clouds, hybrid clouds, private clouds, public clouds. In between, there might be some fog computing. But you really need to think about the glue that is interconnecting all these things, and fiber, open fiber networks are really the way to go for the future. So with that, I would like to thank you for the time given here, and I will give the word to Jan again.
Thank you very much, Hans. Very clear. So future-proof, latency, redundancy, these are the keywords that fiber can offer in the strategy that every company has. Thank you very much. We're going now to the questions. Hans, one question. You suggest that dark fiber is the way forward, but what about price? Yeah, I always like it. Price is always an issue, but the question is more about, is dark fiber the solution that you think is appropriate?
Well, I think we offer a number of solutions. We offer, in fact, the solution that is right for the customer. We have pure connectivity services, but it's always on the fundamental fiber network. But indeed, we also offer dark fiber for those who are in real need of being in control of the network themselves and being able to choose whatever technology what they want to put on top of that. Does that have to be expensive? Well, this links back to our investment policy. How we are working with our customers is not that they have to pay upfront for the complete investment. We work typically with list prices, and we bear the cost of that investment and take the risk completely on us. So it doesn't have to be expensive for a user to think of dark fiber. In the past, it may have been that way, but working with list prices needs to be in such a way that we are competitive to all other forms of connectivity, and as such, the risk of the investment is borne by Eurofiber and not by the end customer.
Okay, I have a second question. The joint venture for fiber to the home becomes part of the Eurofiber family, question mark.
Well, it's going to be a separate run company, but there will be ways to work to use the fiber for not only Eurofiber, but as it is an open network, and this is fundamental again for us, it needs to be an open network. Also, other partners can talk to the joint venture once established and will be able to source the fiber from the joint venture, such as Eurofiber can as well. And this will help us to build end-to-end networks, not only on top of our proper networks or partly owned networks, but also third-party networks.
Okay, clear. Well, we are running out of time, so I will do a very short wrap-up. So Mitch explained to us that 5G opens a lot of possibilities on campus sites, that it is here and that it is here to stay, and that the future will surely help us to our digital transformation. It is important, of course, that you can continue to manage your cloud using automated platforms and in such a way that it is something that, will not give a lock-in, but that always makes sure that you are flexible in how to use the cloud, and that fiber is the enabler for all your digital transformations. Hans made that clear. So with this, first of all, there are still some unanswered questions. We will come back to you personally because we have all these questions and you will get the answers. There is a recording of this live seminar. You can rewatch it on YouTube afterwards. You have a link now where you can click on. Please do so already right now to make sure that you're automatically put in the breakout rooms. So please click on it now. The breakout rooms will open up at 3 sharp. So it's now more or less 10 to 3. So within 10 minutes, the breakout session will start. So please click on the link right now. Which is something which is important for us also is that you give an evaluation when you receive it. Please, it would help us big time if you give us some feedback to make sure that in the future we can do it better. We hope that the next one, maybe we can meet live again. I'm checking now, we have, it's really not a joke, we have 100 people in this call. So we hope really that in the near future, we can see you all in person, but as we have to do it in a virtual way, please do not hesitate to talk to everybody, every one of the speakers during the breakout session. With this, a big thank to Hans, of course, Mitch, of course, for being here with me in the studio and to talk us through all these interesting things. And Jaap, who is the only one who is not on site, but he was online. A big thank you for you also. And of course, to each and every one of you who has followed this live broadcast event, I really want to thank you for watching, and I hope the breakout session will bring you even further and interesting insights. Thank you very much, and goodbye.